Could this be the happiest man on earth? Revealing the inner workings of his brain, science is about to find out. Mathieu Ricard is a master meditator. For over 30 years, he has embraced the ancient traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, discovering extraordinary states of happiness through training the mind.
From Buddhist perspective, what we call enlightenment is a perfect knowledge of the nature of mind, the way thoughts arise, the way you can liberate thoughts instead of being enslaved by the thoughts.
For Buddhists, happiness is enlightenment. To reach it, Mathieu meditates for up to 6 hours a day.
It's a very deep way of being. A way of being that has to do with inner freedom, with inner peace, with freedom from what? From destructive emotions, freedom from anger, freedom from obsession, from jealousy, from pride. Not that you become dull like a vegetable, but you become free, which is very different.
Have Mathieu's thousands of hours of meditation created a brain of exceptional abilities? Science will seek the answer. Exploring the ancient limbic system, the emotional brain, home to our most powerful drives. And the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain that regulates our emotions. The complex interplay of these two regions is the key to understanding happiness, the aim of the meditating monk. Mathieu Ricard began his life an ordinary man, undistinguished in the inner world of emotions. Born into a French academic family, he was surrounded by writers and intellectuals.
I met great pianists, I met Stravinsky. With my father, I met great philosophers. My mother was a painter, I met all the great artists in France. I wanted to have their gift for every particular thing, but not necessarily to become what they were.
He became a distinguished scientist with a PhD in cell genetics from the fabled Pasteur Institute. Then, in 1967, his life was transformed by a spiritual calling, one that would bring him alongside that famous man of joy, the Dalai Lama.
For me, it was much a greater source of inspiration than continuing to find out how cells divide. Nothing wrong with that, but to spend my life, I prefer to spend my life knowing how my mind works.
Mathieu will journey to a laboratory on the other side of the world, where his profound level of happiness will be tested to the extreme. The results will cause scientists to rethink the mystery of our most elusive emotion, happiness. For a millennium, the Buddhist secrets of training the mind were preserved in a time capsule hidden from the world. Today, living in exile, Tibetan monks like Mathieu Ricard spend decades learning how to discipline their emotions. The techniques have been passed down through countless generations. Can these ancient traditions find a place in the modern, stressful world? At Wisconsin biotech company Promega, 41 members of staff took part in an unusual experiment to find out.
If the mind wanders off 1,000 times, you simply bring it back 1,000 times.
Around half the workers were taught to meditate by an experienced practitioner. The rest were not. Then any changes in the meditators were measured and compared against the group as a whole.
Placed in your lap or on your knees.
We had to wear little beanies with electrodes coming out of them and accomplish several computer testing kinds of tasks.
Okay, Mary, the next recording will be an eyes closed recording. So if you can please sit quietly with your eyes closed for 1 minute, we'll begin recording now.
And usually you were hooked up to some kind of monitor that was taking track of some physiological parameter.
A broad-based reading of what is happening in Mary's brain is downloaded through each of these electrodes, recording electrical pulses 500 times a second. After 8 weeks, the researchers found significant differences between the meditators and the group as a whole. In those who meditated, stress levels were reduced and immunity to illness increased.
I see the meditation as having brought a new learning experience. And so one of the outcomes was the ability to set things aside, to take stressors and put them aside to work through situations better.
But the most significant finding was yet to come. Richard Davidson from the University of Wisconsin is the leader of this pioneering study. In a world first, he discovered you can actually see what happens in the brain when you're happy.
We find a specific signal in regions of the left prefrontal cortex which are associated with reports of happiness and well-being. Those individuals that report more happiness and higher levels of well-being have a stronger signal in these regions of the left prefrontal cortex.
When we experience happiness, joy, and enthusiasm, intense electrical energy is registered in the left side of the prefrontal cortex. In neat symmetry, depression and negative thought appear as activity in the right side. And if we take an average measure of both positive and negative emotion, we arrive at a set point on a scale of happiness. Richard Davidson tested 150 volunteers and discovered most people's set point sits slightly to the left of center, the happy side. Just like the Palm Pilot survey, it seems most of us are happy. And if you meditate, it seems you get happier still. Mary and her co-workers had increased activity in the left prefrontal cortex after only 8 weeks of meditation. This led Richard Davidson to ask a question that could change the way the world views happiness. What's happening in the brain of a master meditator who's devoted decades to mental training? This challenge brings the scientist-turned-monk, Mathieu Ricard, from his monastery in Nepal back into the world of science.
Okay. And again and again. Just a solid minute, continue.
Today, Mathieu Ricard will have his level of happiness measured by the most advanced brain imaging equipment known to science. The functional MRI allows the movement of blood to be recorded as emotion activates parts of the brain.
Okay.
Must be comfortable.
Okay.
Just like that.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
You lay your 2 arms on your body.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pull that here now. This is okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to put you in the scan now.
This is an historic study. Cutting-edge equipment, monks with singular skills, and emotion under unique examination.
Emotion, just like any other complex mental process, involves the coordination among a number of different regions of the brain. Functional MRI allows us to see all those regions together.
3, 2, 1, go.
Mathieu's aim is to generate a state of pure positive emotion, a state synonymous with happiness.
Is that confusing?
Evocative sounds are played to sharpen his focus.
We are examining the brain's response to these emotional sounds during a neutral period as well as during a period when he is voluntarily generating compassion.
There are many ways to meditate. Visualization, stilling the mind by concentrating on a fixed point, mantras, and breath techniques. Mathieu is meditating on loving kindness.
It's a state of pure compassion, which is, I think, in Western language, best thought about as a state where loving kindness is just all pervasive and is generated in a very powerful way. And that is a practice that many of these monks do on a very, very regular basis every single day of their lives.
The environment is as far removed from the Nepalese mountains as can be imagined. Yet Mathieu gives the researchers positive emotion on demand.
So please just be neutral now, and you'll be hearing the sounds, and then I'll come on to tell you when to switch to compassion.
Compassion is about any living creatures, and in a way, this kind of scanner is a very brutal environment for them. So
okay.
Neutral. Neutral.
We are getting approximately 35 separate slices through his brain every 2 seconds. And we'll use that to examine the functional activity during these different states in response to the emotional sounds. Compassion.
Three decades of training his mind allow Mathieu to move between feeling neutral to 100% positive emotion. The fMRI registers the effect. It's as great a change as night to day. Richard Davidson is being cautious about the results, but already his studies are attracting international attention. The word is, the master meditator's left prefrontal cortex, the happy side, lit up far beyond expectations. The happiness set point was so far to the left, it was off the chart, suggesting happiness can be controlled and dramatically enhanced at will.
Okay, Mathieu, we're finished with that run. How did you feel?
it's fine. It's a good sign of focusing the mind.
After 3 hours in the confines of the fMRI, the tests are finally over.
How do you feel?
Well, coming out of the cave.
This was wonderful. Just wonderful.
I think it was okay.
Although we won't know the final results for many months, Richard Davidson is excited by their findings.
From EEG as well. There are very, very, very few other people like him on the planet. In fact, the specific confluence of characteristics that he possesses is truly unique.
This research may be in its early stages, but already it's revealing that training the mind can produce significant changes in the parts of the brain at the very heart of happiness.
It will put certain emotions on the scientific map, if you will, that have not previously been taken seriously. One of them is compassion. Compassion is a quality of mind, a quality of being, which may have very important functional consequences.
The more we know about the brain and emotions, the more we'll be able to help ourselves manage our own turbulent, distressing emotions better. So I think that the ultimate yield will be happier lives for all of us.
Of course, not all of us can lead the life of a secluded monk. But new research indicates even short periods of mind training can wire our brains for happiness. All it takes is practice. Neuroscientists have discovered that any repetitive activity creates new neural pathways in the brain. The brain of a violinist, for example, develops neural connections that reflect years of practice. This suggests we're all capable of molding our brains.
If you look at a champion swimmer in the Olympics, or if you look at a chess champion, or you look at the first violinist in a world-class orchestra, people at the top of their form, all of those people have practiced at least 10,000 hours or more to get as good as they are. Then the question is, what would happen to a human brain if you did this with certain cognitive skills, if you did it with attention, fine focus, non-distracted attention, if you did it with loving kindness and compassion. So now people who have done 3 years or more of these practices, that is to say, who certainly are at the Olympic level, are coming into labs to have their brain studied to see what the difference is, and some of the differences are quite remarkable.
So, is Mathieu Ricard the happiest man on earth? Science suggests he's certainly one of them. And now it seems, like Mathieu, we can all train our brains to think in happier ways.
Our mind is like a spoiled brat. You know, all these kind of fancy things and doing this and wanting this, rejecting that. Now we have to find out how the mind works. How the mind from one thought, two thoughts of anger, full blast anger, breaks our own happiness and destroy that of others too. And that only needs, we have to start spending time looking at the mind, how it functions. We never do that. We always look outside. So we need to look inside.
If the scientific research helps people to take that message more seriously and suggests to them that there's some real substance to this, and if, as a consequence, they then show an interest in learning about these kinds of methods to train their mind, then I think that we will have made some difference, which I think will be a positive difference, which may ultimately help individuals to lead a happier life.
I think science is getting a better handle on what it is that triggers our emotions, and perhaps most important, what we can do about it. That is, how we can start to manage our emotional life more effectively, and I think that's quite important for all of us.
We have long believed we are at the mercy of our emotions. But now science is revealing we each have the potential to enhance our lives in real and measurable ways. Profound happiness, it seems, is in our reach.